All right, everybody, welcome to Saints Happy Hour Podcast, Wednesday edition. Andrew, this one's free because of My Bookie. They are the best online betting place to go. They are the safest, most secure. You can bet on football, basketball, baseball, golf, in-game betting, anything you want to bet on, they have it. Use the code HAPPY25, you get 10% sign-up bonus. Put in 100, you get 10 extra dollars. Go to mybookie.ag, mybookie.com. You pay, you play, you win, you get paid. Andrew, today I want to talk about something that Saints Twitter is talking about, and I was arguing with people through the Saints Happy Hour Twitter feed today instead of doing actual work. And it was a Bill Barnwell article that posted Tuesday, and he picked 4 teams in the NFC that were likely to regress, and the Saints were among them. And although he didn't have the Saints having as big a regression as the Cowboys, because he even admitted, look, the Saints have the best roster probably in the NFL. They're deep, they're awesome. Their point differential was 150. But his main point about the Saints, and he didn't even go into it that detail, is the Saints won against Cleveland because Cleveland's kicker had a full fucking meltdown, and they won against Baltimore because Justin Tucker missed an extra point for the first time in his life. Now, Baltimore, they wouldn't have lost. They would have gone into overtime, so you don't know how that goes. But Atlanta went into overtime. So the Saints had 3 incredibly close games to start the year that if you flip 2 of them, my God, their start of their season would have been a fucking mess. So these margins are slim, and I don't think it's outrageous for Barnwell to be like, the Saints aren't going 13-3. And in fact, I looked it up. Do you know how many teams since 2000 have gone 13-3 back-to-back years?
2.
Yeah. It's New England a bunch of times and Denver with Peyton Manning. That's it. That's the fucking list. So do you agree with Bill Barnwell in his sense that the Saints ain't going 13-3 again? But more importantly than that, where do you see regression possibly happen for the Saints?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that the 2 times it's happened, it was because a team had an elite quarterback, check, and a defense to support them, check.
Yeah, I like that attitude.
Yeah, so I don't think that immediately rules out 13-3 just because only 2 teams have done it. But listen, the Saints went 13-2. That's almost impossible for anyone to replicate. And like you said on Twitter, we're not even counting Week 17 because that was basically a glorified scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
That was a forfeit. So they went 13-2. And sure, I mean, you can point to certain games. We talked about that early in the season. I mean, you remember me telling you, Ralph, like these wins, like you find a way to do them, and everyone's panicking because the Saints look so bad. But it's like, just find a way to win them.
And in December, you won't even remember. You'll just all that matters is the W.
All you'll know is the record and the win, and that's it. But as far as like. This is hardly a hot take that the Saints would regress because, I mean, going 13-2 again is near impossible. And like the thing is, if they go 12-4 or 11-5, I guess that's technically a regression. But I think we'd all be very happy with that record.
If you offered me 11-5 right now, I would just sign the papers and take it and just say. Maybe 11-5 will get me a bye. Maybe it won't, but I'm pretty damn sure it's going to get me a home playoff game, and I'll just let everything else roll because the other possibility of not knowing what you're going to get is way too big of a risk.
Yes, agreed. So, double-digit wins is double-digit wins, and I expect this team to get that. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of a cop-out to pick them as a team that's going to regress when they went 13-2, but. The reasons why it would happen, I think first and foremost, you have to look at the schedule. For me, it's really 2 things. The first one is the schedule. This is a very difficult schedule, especially early in the year. And, a lot of times these teams, you look at them on the schedule and they don't seem it seems a lot harder than it ends up being potentially based on injuries and just teams that you think are going to be good or not as good as you thought and et cetera. So, and then teams you think are really bad end up being better than you thought. So that's all a thing. But early in the season, especially those first 4 weeks, I think we have a decent idea of how those teams are, and those first 4 games are tough. I will point out very quickly, Zeke Elliott just said if he doesn't get a new contract, he's not playing. So it looks more and more likely that he could potentially pull a Le'Veon Bell, which I think changes the landscape for the Cowboys pretty significantly. But
Well,
we'll
the
see how
thing
that
about the
plays out.
Cowboys is, even if he doesn't hold out for the whole year, even if he goes into the regular season and say he goes and doesn't play the first 2 games and Dallas is a disaster and Jerry Jones panics and gives him what he wants, which Jerry Jones has a track record of doing just that. The Cowboys, their second Super Bowl, Emmitt Smith was holding out. He held out the first 2 weeks. Dallas started out 0-2. Jimmy Johnson went into his office and said, "Fucking pay Emmitt Smith," and they did it, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. But if Ezekiel Elliott holds out the first 2 weeks and then comes back, he might not be ready to go, and that's they played the Saints week 4, so that could change that whole dynamic of that Dallas game with the Saints. So that could be really interesting.
Yeah, agreed. So anyway, I think the schedule's tough this year, and I think that's going to be a challenge, especially being back-to-back on the West Coast with the Rams and Seahawks to start the year. I mean, that Monday Night Football game to start the year is critical because then you're on a short week with back-to-back West Coast games. I just think that's going to be tough.
That's as must. The opening game for the Saints is as must win as you can possibly have for a team that is coming off 13-3. Like it's just
important.
It's just that important.
Yep, I agree. But beyond that, the second thing I was going to say is I just think when you look at what the Saints did that was the elite last year, it was stopping the run. And when you lose Tyler Davison and Sheldon Rankins is out and Onyemata is going to be missing the first game of the year, and the linebackers are the same, and I think the linebackers are a big reason why they were so good against the run, and hopefully Malcolm Brown will be a nice addition. But that's tough to sustain being number 1 in the NFL against the runner. I think at the end they ended up being number 2 maybe, but they were right there at the top. And I don't know that they're going to be able to stuff the run as well as they did last year. If they can, then they absolutely are in play to be as good as they were last year. But I think it's fair to assume that maybe they're still in the top 10, but they dropped to number 8 or something like that. And I think that maybe costs them a game or 2.
Yeah, and look, I just think replicating 5-2 in close games is just gonna be so difficult. And their health, they were for the first time in a long time, the Saints' health, they were not in the bottom. Like in 2017, they were the only team in the bottom 10 teams that had the most games lost from injury to make the playoffs. And last year they were top 6 as far as of best health in the league. So I don't know that that's repeatable, but it's you never know, right? It usually goes in cycles. Maybe the Saints get like a 2-year window where they're still, even if they're in the top half of the league, that'd be okay, depending on who gets injured. I'll tell you one thing. We've people that listen to the daily podcast, which you're getting this for free. You should totally do for $7 every day. It's awesome. You get a koozie, a magnet, and a desk screensaver schedule that's awesome. Season of Vengeance. But we talked about it. The pass rush, we talk about it as a key to the season. You talk about the run defense and the pass rush. If the pass rush gets better and they top the 40-plus sacks they had last year, then 13-3 is very, very much in play. Like, that's something where you looked at it, and I can make a case of Davenport's going to get better, and that's going to improve. Everywhere else, besides tight end, I don't really see something on this roster, Andrew, that I'm like, yeah, that's going to get a ton better.
Yeah, that's fair. But, I think I don't really view winning close games as an aberration, because when you get inside 2 minutes, it really comes down to, can you make plays in the passing game? And obviously the Saints have Drew Brees, right? Is your secondary and your pass rush, can they slow down the opposition? And I think the Saints secondary is very strong. And at least last year, their pass rush was good. And we hope that Davenport and and Cam Jordan can do their thing, and hopefully Rankins can come back. But we'll see how the pass rush is, and then. I mean, the last thing is really the kicking game. Is your kicking game reliable? And I would say that right now, the situation with Will Lutz is as reliable as any kicking game situation in the league. So, you say that the Saints got lucky against the Browns, but it's the Browns' own fault for having an unreliable kicking situation, And I mean, maybe some of that's luck, but I'm just saying, like, if you remember back to the years where the Saints had kind of wobbly kicking, they probably lost a lot of close games because of missed field goals or whatever.
2008. The kicking, they had Grammatica. The kicking was a fucking disaster. They lost to Denver.
That's right. Yeah, Orlando Mare. They lost all, and really even when Lutz was younger and he was getting more of his kicks blocked because of low trajectory, they lost against the Broncos and Carolina because of block kicks. So,
Giants too,
and the Giants too. Yeah, so. I think the Saints are at a place now where their kicking game is really reliable, and that makes a difference inside 2 minutes. And so, maybe they don't go 5-2, maybe it's 4-3 this year. Obviously in coin flip games, you don't know how it goes exactly. But my point there is, the team luck tends to find the teams that have a good passing game, have a good pass rush, and have a good kicking game, and the Saints have all three.
Yeah, and to me, the key with the one-score games is not necessarily being better in them than the Saints in 2019, or even keeping the record the same. Just keep the number of close games the same. If they only have 7 games decided by one score or less, it'll be fine. Even if they go instead of going 5-2, they go 3-4 or 2-5. If you only have 7 of them and your other 9 games, you win 7 of them and lose 2 of them, and you go 3-4, that still gets you to 10. So that's the thing. And another thing I was thinking about when you were talking about the things the Saints have that make them better in close games, it was the thing that you started with. I was thinking about the run defense, in that for all the talk about, the NFL is more wide open now and you don't need to establish the run to be successful, that might be true on offense. But on defense, if you cannot stop the run, you are still fucked. And teams, no matter how much they open up the passing game and throw the ball all over the place, most of the coaches in the NFL, probably 80% of them, late in games, when they're leading by 3 or by 4 and they have the ball, they're still going to run the ball on those first 2 downs. And the Saints continuing to be a top 5 run defense is a great sort of, I don't know what you call it, chip, a weapon or whatever, but it's something that really can help you in close games, because a team will try to run out the clock, running the ball, because they don't want to be aggressive with their young quarterback or whatever, and the Saints stuff them, and oh, by the way, now Breeze is getting the ball back, and it's 21-24, and he's got the ball at his 35-yard line, and it's directly related to, on the first 2 downs, the other team got stuffed cold. So
no doubt it gives you the ability to come back in games you're behind.
So
no doubt.
This wraps up Wednesday. We'll have Thursday and Friday looking more forward to the Saints preseason game. But this one is free because of My Bookie, guys. You need to sign up, and you need to remember, join us on the Friday live post-game show. We're going to start that baby in the 4th quarter. So join us then. And this has been Saints Happy Hour Podcast for Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow.